Few games nowadays strive to execute a unique or innovative concept. Most games today seem to identify with a specific genre and fight to exist as a standout entry amongst its peers, lacking their own creative direction. Despite being a licensed game, A Quiet Place: The Road Ahead manages to scratch a creative itch and offer a unique take on the survival horror genre. This game had no other choice than to do just that, though. What I mean is that this game is not on the same level of production value as Alien Isolation. This is definitely a double A video game that needed to make up for the lack of budget and manpower with excellent execution of its unique mechanics. I'm really happy to say that this game saw some success in doing just that, though of course it isn't without its flaws and missed opportunities. Most importantly, though, I can safely say I had a lot of fun with A Quiet Place: The Road Ahead. Staying silent in horror games is far from a new gameplay idea. Just about every horror game you can think of has some light stealth elements to build tension. A Quiet Place: The Road Ahead, however, dials up the severity of silence and gives you some fun tools and limitations to maintain it. To put into perspective how sensitive noise is in this game, walking full speed down a silent corridor, even when enemies aren't present, will put you in danger. You need to think carefully about walking slowly, quickly, or sneaking wherever you go. This is especially true because every surface you walk on has varying levels of noise associated with it. For instance, walking over leaves at any speed will attract unwanted attention. Rocky surfaces, broken glass, and puddles of water are similarly dangerous. Surfaces covered with sand, on the other hand, actually work to reduce the sound of your footsteps. The complexities of simply walking don't end there, though. Just like in the movies, in a noisy environment, sounds you make cannot be easily detected by the monsters. Areas like waterfalls, rainy environments, or even gusty winds can mask the sounds you make. One might think that having to stress about walking anywhere would be frustrating and it could get old quickly, and while that might be true in the late game, I was surprised how much fun I was having with it during the unique set pieces and scenarios thrown throughout the game. Speaking of which, this isn't exactly one of those Metroidvania style horror games where you explore an ever changing hub. This game is much more linear, as it asks you to complete objectives, solve puzzles, and survive small arenas in which a stalker hunts you. Now, it's these small areas with the monsters that are by far the highlight of the game, but I'll get more into that later. With the sensitivity of the monster's hearing, many people might think the simple solution dealing with them in this game is by simply staying in a corner of the room, silently waiting for the hunters to pass. This game has a very clever mechanic to keep that from being a one size fits all solution. The hero, Alex, suffers from asthma. As such, you have what I like to call an asthma meter that will constantly build when she exerts herself. Physical exertion, dusty environments, and simply being close by to the monster are all going to fill your asthma meter. For example, if one of the creatures approaches you while you stay still, you'll watch your asthma meter start to rise. The longer the creature lingers nearby, the more and more your meter will rise until you have an asthma attack, where Alex enters a loud coughing fit. An asthma attack in this game will certainly lead to a game over. The only way to keep an asthma attack at bay is by either using an inhaler or taking pills. Pills are automatically used when picked up and can be consumed silently, while the inhalers are stored in your inventory and are quite loud when used. This segues me very well into how inventory is handled in this game. The inventory is simple. Consumable items are kept in designated slots that max out at 3, meaning you can only carry 3 inhalers and 3 flashlight batteries at a time. Resource scarcity is done very well in this game, but like you would in Resident Evil 2 or Alan Wake 2, you'll never find yourself in a situation where your inventory is full and you have to sacrifice a flashlight battery for an inhaler due to the way the inventory is set up. One thing this game does incredibly well is the way it's constantly introducing new gameplay mechanics and level gimmicks to keep things fun and interesting. As I mentioned before, your flashlight has limited battery life, and you will need to scavenge the environment to maintain a stockpile. But it doesn't stay like that the entire game. Around halfway through the game, Alex loses this flashlight and eventually finds a dynamo flashlight to replace it. So no longer are you worrying about having a supply of batteries, but now you need to worry about loudly cranking your flashlight to charge it. I think this is brilliant as it completely changes how you play the game. Additionally, the game introduces sandbags around the midway point that you can open and spread to reduce the sound of your footsteps. The player has a lot of freedom in regards to where they can spread the sand, and carrying the bag starts building up the asthma meter. so you'll have to be smart with it. This is really fun, and I think other survival horror games should really learn from this and ask their players to adapt to new gameplay mechanics. In regards to the unique level design, some areas have docks in which you need to quietly navigate by using planks to cross gaps of water. Some levels have broken water pipes which are loud enough to mask your sounds, yet need to be turned off in order to progress. And some levels contain buildings filled with dusty air that drains your asthma insanely fast. Now, this wouldn't be a credible review of the road ahead if I didn't go into detail about the segments with the hunters. As previously stated, this game will force you into small arena-like areas with a monster and demand you to use all of your tools and mechanics previously listed to make it through. These arenas are very intelligently designed. Certain parts of the arena will have broken glass, puddles of water, or just rocky surfaces, and all of these simple things are quite stressful to deal with when there's a giant creature working its way towards you while your asthma meter starts building constantly. These arenas also contain some sandbags, throwable bottles, bricks, some inhalers, and movable planks to use to your advantage. There was one particularly memorable segment where a stalker was creeping up behind me very quickly, and I needed to cross a sea of rocks to get to the end. Nearby, I noticed a sandbag and a throwable bottle. I decided to just pick up the sandbag and sand the rocky surface, allowing me to walk across quietly. At this point, my asthma was reaching its peak, but since I made some distance between myself and the monster, I used an inhaler, which clued my foe to my location. I found a locked door, and eventually found a path to a key, which brought me right back to where I had initially found the sandbag. Thankful that I saved my throwable bottle, I tossed it away, watched the hunter take the bait, and made a break for the locked door to escape. Moments like these are going to be very different for every player, and I'm so happy with how open-ended these segments are. Finally, I have to talk about our foes in this game. They're definitely not quite like the Xenomorph in Alien Isolation, but they don't need to be. They hunt through sound, and they do that very well in this game. While their AI won't blow you away, they are really fun enemies to face, and I always enjoyed our encounters. One of the most common ways that I die was actually from coming into contact with them. If I hit a dead end and a creature was on my tail, I tried to just stay put in the corner of the dead end and simply hope that I wouldn't have an asthma attack. Usually, what would happen in this situation is the monster's massive arm would brush up against me and instantly kill me. Speaking of which, they did a fantastic job with the modeling of the stalkers. The sounds they make, the way they move, the way they look, it's all really well done. Now, you may be wondering what the issues are with this game. Well, most of them are built into the game's foundation. I'm happy to say that this game isn't buggy. The only technical bug I saw was minor. In fact, here's what happened. One of the biggest turnoffs in this game is the structure. As previously mentioned, there are designated areas in which a monster hunts you. You may be wondering about how they chase you outside of these arenas. The short answer is they don't. The game is kind of structured like a series of pathways to exciting boss encounters, but not a lot happens in these pathways. Monsters don't hunt you per se. In fact, they scarcely come out. Really, they stay hidden and just instantly kill you if you make too much noise. Granted, these pathways contain some welcomed puzzles, good world building, and some really great lore in the form of notes. But the issue is, there isn't particularly too great of a threat. Though horror games always need some downtime from the scares, these segments can drag. I have to say, if this game was more Metroidvania structured, like Resident Evil 2, or even like the Ishimura in Dead Space, I feel like this could be really fun. Being confined to a building that slowly expands as you obtain keys and other upgrades while these noise-sensitive foes listen out for you constantly sounds absolutely brilliant. Imagine sandbags being more scarce, but the sand you pour in the hub world never goes away, causing you to think very carefully about where you pour it. Imagine having no monsters in sight, then accidentally knocking over a bucket, causing a monster to patrol the area you're in. What's more surprising is that I'm almost sure this would have been cheaper to design had they gone about it in this way. Another issue I take with the game lies with the ending. The end of this game takes place in a fire station. Your task is to navigate through the station while turning off water and pipes, using fuses, and staying alive in order to reach a boat to take you to an island free from the monsters. The very last gameplay segment requires you to wear a gas mask while your asthma builds up slowly, and walk over to the boat using some planks, hopping on the boat, and then out of nowhere, using a QTE segment to shoot one of the monsters off the boat, and the end. If that sounds like a disappointing ending, it's because it is. Based on the road ahead story and gameplay, both really enjoyable aspects of this package, I was thinking that the player would have to use a shotgun like we would in any other game to kill a few monsters before boarding the boat, not just a QuickTime event. Despite my criticism, I would strongly recommend this game to all horror fans. I really mean it. This game is a lot of fun, and that fun comes from its uniqueness. Plus, I got this game for just $30 on release. The road ahead is easily worth it. I really hope that this game gets a sequel. If they fix the structure of the game and make a more hard-hitting ending, this game could really easily be a massive hit. I tried Googling the sales data for this game and didn't find any articles at all on the subject, which is definitely not a good sign for a sequel, but I can still hope. Nonetheless, this game gifted us some really great horror gameplay mechanics and some really good scares as well. A Quiet Place: The Road Ahead is a really fun game.